right, welcome everyone. I'm Zachary Weaver and I'll be facilitating the meeting. We haven't discussed it yet, but we may upload this recording to our Democracy in a Box YouTube channel for everyone to access. This is a creative energy group, which is a series of meetings that are structured to build creative energy behind a goal or in response to a question by ensuring that every perspective has time to freely share. We will use these meetings to build creative energy behind all of the projects connected with Democracy in a Box. We haven't really defined specific measurable goals yet, but that is something we can do. One possibility is that this will lead to positive actions and fruitful collaborations. So if you're inspired and you want to start your own project or pursue a goal or join somebody else's project, go for it. Also, if you want to start your own creative energy group on a slightly different goal, a completely different goal, or the exact same goal, you are more than welcome. This is intended to be open source and democratic. So I was already talking a little bit about this, but we're starting this group because Dawn and I were talking, and you know, we've been talking a lot about events where we can invite people to join in, and we've talked about you know, also just, I guess, a way of kind of keeping everyone a little bit more connected and on the same page. And so that's within Democracy in a Box. And so that's the reason I got this group going. Yeah, we can talk more about that later. I'm going to share a very brief description of how the meeting will run, just so you have an idea of what to expect. I will start off by getting the names of all the participants who want to share logged into our meeting spreadsheet. I will then call on people who want to share from the spreadsheet in order of least amount of speaking time over the history of our meetings. If people have equal speaking time, I will call on them in alphabetical order, starting with first names. When someone is sharing, I will use a stopwatch to track the amount of time that they speak. When someone is finished sharing, I will thank them and log their speaking time in the spreadsheet. I will then call on the next person who wants to share. If everyone on the list shares and we have more time, we will do another round. When we're down to a few minutes left in the meeting, I will wrap up and announce the time of the next meeting, if we plan one. And I'll also send, I'll probably start sending an email with the details, but we might do it in Slack. Probably an email list would be good to have. And we may not have time for everyone to share at each meeting. We will for this one, I know. But this model will ensure that the people who don't share as much will be called on early at the next meeting. All right, now I'm going to enter everyone who wants to share something into the spreadsheet. So if you're on the video call and you want to share, I think you can just click the raise hand button in Zoom. I haven't really done this before, so curious to see how it works. Did anyone click raise hand?
I think.
Not sure how it.
Am I missing it? I think, is it?
Maybe it only works when I mute people. Oh no, I see. Lena, thank you, cool.
Yeah.
Are you seeing it, Dawn? Oh, there, cool. Do that. All right. So I have Don and Lena entered into the spreadsheet, and we only have people calling in that way. So give me just a moment while I sort the spreadsheet. Okay, all right, the spreadsheet is sorted. I will begin calling on people to share in order of least amount of speaking time over the history of our meetings. All right, Don, we are ready for you to share. I guess you can unmute yourself, I think, and I'll start a stopwatch. So just let me know when you're finished sharing.
Okay, thanks. You surprised me because I know we've talked a lot. So this is a new set of meetings. So
it's a clean slate.
Clean slate. So I'm not going to be penalized for all my previous filibustering. So I think this is a really good a good idea. And what we started talking about originally was that so much of our challenge right now is a lack of civic literacy and a real challenge when it comes to civility and civil discourse. And I think that I think this could be a great format for low barrier to entry for people. You know, we can send out invitations to a number of people, especially if we come up with a regular time that we can just have out there. And I know it'd be pretty easy if we were talking to someone about what you're up to, and then you say, oh, well, why don't you drop in on this creative energy group? If you like it, great. If you don't, it's no big. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there, especially with all the challenges we're facing. I know a lot of people are really bumping up against, this COVID has lasted a lot longer than anyone expected or prepared themselves for mentally. And I think a lot of people are zoomed out, but if we can put this in a way that gives people hope and maybe empowers them to feel like that they can gather some understanding, I think there's a lot of potential here. And I'm done.
I've done mute. Thank you, Don. We're going to move on to the next person who wants to share. Just give me a second while I update the spreadsheet. All right, Lena, we are ready for you to share. And just let me know when you are finished.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with Dawn. I think that this is a really cool opportunity of getting people involved with learning more about civic history and engagement, what that looks like, because I think that this is a very casual way, I guess, to talk about these things. And I think that a lot of webinars and whatnot that have been happening since March, they feel very formal, I think, in a lot of ways. And I think that this creative energy type of format allows people to kind of ask a lot of questions and also engage with people that they haven't really engaged with before, because I think that it's, very likely that a lot of us are surrounded by people with a lot of the same opinions and similar knowledges. And I think that it's really interesting to see how this will sort of play out for people. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Lena. I will move on to the next person. I think I'll share for a little bit after I update the spreadsheet here. I have to get used to toggling between all the screens again. Okay, so I just wanted to say, yeah, I'm really excited for how this shapes out. I think, yeah, some things I'm excited to explore today are maybe a recurring time that we could have these meetings, and we could change that. I was kind of thinking it would be cool, if we could use like those arranger polls that Elizabeth was sending out for a while there, where we could kind of find the best time that works for at least the people in the core group, and then we people outside of that can gravitate to that time. I'm okay with, like, even this afternoon time. I've noticed that kind of seems to work for a lot of the Democracy in a Box people, so I would be okay with like 2 o'clock on the second Tuesday of the month. And then another thing I'm excited to start exploring is to kind of find those specific measurable goals that we might be able to kind of announce progress on at the beginning of each meeting. I think voter participation rates are a good thing that we've kind of talked about, and I think finding some of those, and then we can also have goals that are even more specific maybe to the projects that we're doing. But I think that'll be having some of those goals worked in will kind of be a nice way for us to feel some collective momentum towards something. So yeah, I think that's all I have to share for now, and we can do another round. So we can do another round. So if you would like to share again, go ahead and just click the raise hand button again. Thank you. Okay, I have Don and Lena entered into the spreadsheet, and just give me a moment while I sort it. All right, Lena, we are ready for you to share. Just let me know when you're finished.
Hi again. I think that I like the idea of sending out polls to see what times work best for people. I think you're right that there's been a pretty good pattern in that people are available in the afternoons. I was almost wondering though, do you think that, and this goes to everyone, do you think that it'd be helpful if there was like a set day of the month that like we were like, maybe like the weekend or something that was very reliable, so that people who aren't in Democracy in a Box, for example, could like, there's always sort of a chance that those people are free. I just don't know what day would probably work, I guess, just for everyone generally, outside of Democracy in a Box. And I was thinking that maybe if there's like a weekend in the month that we choose, that's pretty consistent, that might be a good way to start out, but I'm also unsure. So I just wanted to pitch that idea to see what you all thought. But that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Lena. I'll update the spreadsheet here. All right, and Don, we're ready for you to share. So just let me know when you're finished.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with what Lena said, both on a ranger poll, and also on maybe possibly a weekend day, either in addition, or I don't know. We want to be careful. We don't want to load up too much, but I think that would be that's more likely that you would get maybe somebody who could. I mean, everybody's there. I mean, everybody's schedule is crazy right now, but I think, you know, there's a lot of people who, you know, either between school and day jobs, you know, the weekend might be more accommodating for some folks. I was just thinking, based on what you said, Zachary, I think the number of topics that we could cover, you know, are just, especially right now, post-election, there are so many things on people's minds. I think if we could figure out a way to, this would be a good way to experiment with people who are outside of our group. I was just a real quick experience that I had recently. A friend of ours lives in Massachusetts, and I'd been asking her for the last 2 months what she'd been hearing about ranked choice voting on their polls, and she said she hadn't heard anything. And but then once I asked the question, she said, well, I'll look into it. And then she kept me updated almost every day. She sent me an update of either what her friends were saying or what she was reading or whatever. And it turned out that it didn't pass. And so I think a lot of it had to do with, misunderstanding. And there was a really well-funded group for it, and that alone made some people distrustful of it. And so I realize every single thing we talk about that seems kind of, this is commonplace because we've been talking about it for longer than most people, but constantly reminded that a lot of people don't even really understand the basics of civics. Ranked choice voting is not super complicated, but there is a little bit of math involved, and it really intimidates some people. And I was thinking we could do a whole session on ideology, the isms of what the different isms are and what they aren't. We could, I don't know. I'm just thinking that I think we have the potential for a lot of topics. And if we get a good monthly schedule going, that I think it would, maybe I'm being naive and overly optimistic, but I think it would lend itself to more people saying, oh, I really like this. Maybe I'll start a meeting about this particular topic, or even this particular format that could be bigger. And Zachary, you and I had talked about that you could almost have 4 different sets of creative energy groups going on each one of the 4 pillars of Democracy in a Box. if that's how we divide, you know, you could divide it any way you wanted to. So, and I'm done.
Thank you so much, Don. And Kaylee, thank you for joining us.
Hi, I was in class and I honestly kind of forgot what this was going to be about. So I was like, oh, let's join and see what this is going to be about.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much. Happy to have you. So let me see. Okay, I guess I'll share a little bit more. And yeah, so Kaylee, just to fill you in, we're doing a creative energy group, and so it's where we all take turns sharing in order of least amount of speaking time over the history of meetings. That's what we're doing now, and we're talking about making this meeting a meeting where it's open to the public, or open to anyone we invite, but it's also a way for us to kind of have a regular check-in as the Democracy in a Box kind of core team. And I love the idea, Lena, of it being on the weekend or a day that works for a lot of people. I think that's great. I think we should absolutely go for that. Yeah, and then if anyone has any ideas on which day would I'm open to that. And Don, I think this is an amazing opportunity to talk about a lot of things, and I'm wonder, we could have so many topics, and I wonder, like with this creative energy group format, if I'm thinking about it, either we have maybe we could have a different topic each meeting or something like that. Like we could say, okay, we're gonna use this meeting to kind of talk about this, or we could also and because the way we kind of know that these things work is that they all kind of feed into each other. So we could have we could just talk about all the goals that we're going for, or all of the key areas of focus that we have, and then we talk about how they influence each other, and as it comes up, I guess it's all one big goal of democracy. But yeah, that's something we could play with, or we could see how it works. I don't know. Originally when I thought about the creative energy group, I thought about it being for just like one specific goal, but now this will be a way to experiment with it being with it having a multi-focus. So yeah, that's all I want to say for now. And I guess I also want to say, Kaylee, if you have any questions or wondering about anything, feel free to ask. Because all right. Give me just a moment. Okay. And so we have time for more. Anyone who wants to share, could you click the raise hand button, and I'll put your name in the spreadsheet. Okay. So I just have Lena on the spreadsheet for sharing, and put myself on there too. And give me just a second while I sort it. Okay, and Lena, we are ready for you to share. You can just let me know when you're finished.
Yeah, so I know that Dawn had said, we want to make sure we're not overbooking ourselves. So I was wondering would we want to start with like one meeting a month that was on like not a weekend, or would we want to start like with a weekend and then slowly progress into like doing more, I guess. I'm just wondering like how often we want to do these creative energy groups, because I think that ultimately determines like when we choose when we're doing weekends or like a weekday and an afternoon, because I think that we're reaching different audiences, and eventually we obviously want them to like merge into one. That'd be great. But I think it's a question of how we get there. So I was just sort of wondering what you all's opinions on that might be. And I'm done speaking.
Thank you, Lena. Okay, I'll speak for just a minute. And I guess, one thing that I find is that like if I don't have something scheduled, I don't always like, then I procrastinate on getting it done. So one thing I could say for myself here is that I guess I could plan on like next 2 p.m. on the second Tuesday in December as like our next meeting. And then we could also talk in addition to that, we could talk about maybe a weekend day, and yeah, we could do as many, we could schedule these even a little bit more spontaneously if we wanted to. If somebody said, hey, let's have a meeting, we could just plan one for the next week. And so yeah, but for now I'm gonna maybe go ahead and say that I'll plan on hosting one December 8th at 2. And then at least we have, something to build on. All right, that's all I have. Okay, so we do have time for more rounds. Does anyone else want to share anything else? Just feel free to raise your hand or click the raise hand button. Okay, and I have Lena and myself entered into the spreadsheet. So and Lena, we are ready for you to share.
Yeah, I think that date is a really good idea. I think that that's a good way to do it. I think that spontaneously for some of them is also a good idea, because if something like happens in politics, it kind of brings us back to certain questions about democracy. I think that that allows us to have that room, which is really good. Especially because it seems like that's sort of a way that people are get very engaged with those discussions, which kind of leads me to the thought that it'd be very, I obviously have no idea how this transition of powers for will end up going in January, but I think it'd be interesting to have a meeting before that, or at least after that, sort of discuss like what that looked like, just because I know that there's a lot of talk about this transition from like a Trump to Biden presidency, like being very like up in the air about what that looks like, and people saying different things. And I think that draws back to a lot of central questions that we've been asking ourselves in terms of fixing the system, because it brings up just a lot of like controversial topics that have to do with democracy, right? So I was wondering if that would be like a topic that we would be open to doing a creative energy group about. But yeah, I'm just curious about you all's thoughts on that as well. But like I said, great idea for, I think, that next day. I think that works really good for me at least, so.
Great, thank you, Lena. And give me just a second. Haley, why don't you go ahead and share, and just let me know when you're finished.
I mean, I think that's a great idea, because I feel like not a lot of people know about like the whole process of what happens after an election. I know that I'm still learning about it a lot, and I like just learned like yesterday that I was like, oh, you have to like officially concede and everything, and like it's like a whole like formal process, and I was like, didn't know that. I don't know when will be best to have it, I guess, just because of how like, I guess how messy the concession process is this year. Maybe doing, I'd want to say maybe doing one after in January, because like there's still a lot of time and like a lot of things could change by then. So like, I don't know. That's just what I think might be a pretty good idea to do, but anyone is free to say otherwise. I'm done then.
Thank you, Kaylee. Okay, and to share a little bit. So yeah, I think that's a great topic, the transition of power, and also to speak to what you said, Kaylee, I truly didn't know until you said that there needed to be an official concession. That makes sense, but I didn't know that was part of the, I guess the technical process. I thought that was more a nice formality. So I think I'm thinking of other topics now, but also, I think what's great about the creative energy group thing is that we can people can, and especially since we're talking about kind of everything democracy, people can come and bring up whatever topics that they think are relevant. And as we talk about them, we may be able to kind of define some specific measurable goals we want to around them. Like I'm thinking, especially with everything we've been talking about some specific measurable goals around civic education, like, I don't know, finding ways that maybe that's already being measured, or finding ways that we can kind of track that. maybe even programs we could start. And then on a completely different topic, I need to share this in the article sharing channel, but I was listening to a podcast with someone named Catherine Gell, I think is her name. And I was curious if any of you had heard of her, because she had a perspective on, she had a perspective on money in politics that I hadn't really heard before. And it was a perspective that made me kind of look up and go, oh, maybe that's actually the direction, you know, I should be going, where I think her two big sort of solutions are getting rid of party primaries and having ranked choice voting. And she's kind of wrapped those into one idea, which is like final five voting, where you have an open primary and then the five most preferred candidates from that go on to the general election. And there's also ranked choice voting in the general election. So yeah, curious about your thoughts on that. And I'm all finished. Just give me a second. Well, I'm updating the spreadsheet. If anyone else would like to share, just click the raise hand button and I'll enter you into the spreadsheet. Okay, I have Don, Lena, and Kaylee in the spreadsheet. Okay, and Kaylee, we are ready for you to share if you would like. Just let me know when you're finished.
Well, I didn't raise my hand. I don't know how to work Zoom. I probably pressed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I probably pressed some button, even though I've been using it since March. I don't know how to use it.
No problem. I am just learning as well. So, in that case, Lena.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask if that podcast would be something that you could drop in the Slack. I would definitely love to listen to that so that I could like listen to it and maybe we can discuss it next time. But yeah, that was the only question that I had. I'm really interested in it and I listen to podcasts all the time, so like might as well add another one to the list. But that's all I have to say.
Very cool. Thank you, Lena. All right, and Don, we're ready for you to share.
Okay, thanks. Just a little housekeeping. It's taken me a while to know, but on the raise hand, lower hand, it's an active. It's a toggle. You have to lower your hand. So the nice thing about it is, at least on mine, if your hand is raised and if you go over, if you're on gallery view or you go over your own picture, a little blue box will pop up that says lower hand, or you can go to participants and there's a raise hand, lower hand toggle switch. If that makes sense. But yeah, I was just wanted to say that I really like the idea this kind of goes back to the homeschooling, unschooling that Zachary and I are so familiar with, that if, it's so much easier to learn about something when it's actively going on. And so as far as democracy goes, we couldn't ask for a better time. It's scary as hell, but it's also really interesting. Kaylee, what you said about, all of these things that are, that either we never understood or we didn't know or whatever with regard to electoral politics, this is uncharted territory. I've been doing this for a long time. And, the whole idea of a concession is foreign, and we're constantly reminded that a huge part of our democracy, we think there are laws and hard, fast rules, but a lot of this is based on people of good faith, following conventions and norms. And there was we're sharing people who are really interesting. I don't know if you all are familiar with Caroline Randall Williams. She's written some articles in the New York Times, and she's got a new one out about, I think it's an op-ed piece. I don't know if it's going to be out on Sunday or if it was out. I haven't read the whole thing, but I saw her speaking, and she was talking to that exact point, that so much of what's happening with our democracy is this constantly evolving situation, and some of it is handled by history, some of it's handled by law, but a lot of it is norms are being shattered. So it's the current president is shattering a lot of norms, but that's kind of part of our democracy. And the example she gave was, one of the norms that's no longer around that there were people who were in the White House who owned other people, and that's a norm that's fortunately is no longer the case. And so I would recommend look her up in the New York Times. She's got a couple of really good articles that speak to what we're talking about. Also, in addition to, I don't know if anyone's listened to any of Tessa's intergenerational podcast. Those are pretty good. But Jill Wine-Banks also is just started doing an intergenerational podcast. So, and I'll put that I'll put links to both of those in the Slack. And that's all I've got.
Great. Thank you, Don. Okay. Yeah, I will definitely put a link to that podcast in the Slack, Lena. And it was Andrew Yang Speaks podcast. And I'll try to, it's kind of like, if you want to listen to the part I'm specifically talking about, it starts about halfway through. So I'll try to even maybe find that part of the conversation. And yeah, I keep thinking about, as I'm thinking about the Creative Energy Group, I'm thinking about how much it's going to kind of shape and change as we add more people. And it brings up a thought. We often talk about like these as small groups, but I also see this as a potential way to have a really large group. kind of like moderate a really large, kind of flowing group of people. I don't know. We haven't tested the limits really, but there could be, we could get to the point where the group is, large enough that yeah, we only have time within an hour for, part of the group to speak, but then, there's time for people to come back and speak at the next meeting. And I guess my mind kind of goes to what, this is something I think, you were mentioning recently, Don, was kind of like, explaining to people what we do as Democracy in a Box, and we kind of have, and I'm wondering, if there is, I don't know, if there is some kind of goal or some kind of anchor that we could say, while we are doing this, like we're increasing the voter turnout for each election, like that's kind of the focus. And then we could add more, but something to say like, the meeting, yeah, it's about all things democracy in a way, and also we're generating ideas, we're generating energy to advance this particular goal, so that people can go, oh yeah, I'm into that, or oh no, thank you, I'll go start my own group or something. So that's kind of where my mind was going, and that's all I have to share for now. Okay, so we are drawing close on the hour, but does anyone else want to share before we wrap up the meeting? If you want to raise your hand, cool. Okay, and I just have Don. So Don, you can go ahead and share.
Thank you. I just had just one thought that I had not voiced before, is I think that if we're going to do this monthly, it would be pretty easy for, at least for the next couple months. We've got an inauguration coming up, middle of January. We've got the runoff election in Georgia is going to be first Tuesday of January, like I'm not sure, the 5th or something like that. That's going to be huge. That's a great topic for, why democracy in this country is so messy. We have 50 sets of rules, and we have federal election law, but we also have 50 independent. We are definitely a coalition of, even when it's working well, it's complicated, and everyone has their own set of rules. I think there's a lot to talk about. Definitely January, February for sure. And I guess that's something maybe we can just think about. Do we want to even just say, here's some possible things to be thinking about, so that when we do meet, we're not just coming in cold. Not that it has to be a set agenda, but the other possibility, I guess, too, is if it's something that one of us is very knowledgeable about or passionate about, maybe at the very beginning speak for a few minutes to get everybody up to speed as far as this is how this particular thing we're talking about, this is how this works, or this is the history of, the history of runoff elections. Or, you could ask the question with regards to Georgia, how differently would this have been had Georgia had ranked choice voting for their Senate elections? Because then they would do instant runoff, which is another name for ranked choice voting. And that one Senate seat that Loeffler and Warnock are going to be fighting for, I think there were 12 people running, and 8 of them were Republicans and 4 were Democrats, but besides the other parties. So I think that would be really I don't know. I think that would be a fun topic of conversation.
Thank you, Don. Yeah, I love all those ideas. All right, and for now, I guess we're close to the hour, so I'll go ahead and wrap up. But we can keep talking informally afterwards if you guys have more to say. But thank you all for a great meeting. So yeah, we didn't decide on this, but we could potentially upload these recordings to our Democracy in a Box YouTube channel for everyone to access. And so, yeah, I'll say our next meeting will be December 8th, Tuesday, December 8th at 2 p.m. And I'll send everyone, I'll email everyone on the call Zoom invitation, and I'll also put one in the Slack group. And if you want to invite anyone, all you have to do is send them the link in the email. So yeah, please join us again and share more. Have a great day. I will unmute everyone so you can say goodbye or talk a little more after we stop the meeting.